Hi, my dear Astro family. Today I wanted to talk to you about the Saturn and Chiron semi-square, which is going to be taking place actually on the 15th of August. Now, this is something which started around the 23rd of February, by the way, and then we're gonna have one more semi-square happening between them two in November 25th. So we will be feeling its impact till about the end of January, actually. But basically, we're talking about this. We're talking about something like a cycle. So a cycle always starts with a conjunction, and the current Saturn-Chiron cycle started in April 1966. So basically, we're talking about a 62-year cycle between them two. But I would like to mention that it's not always 62 years. Sometimes it's a lot longer period, actually. It pretty much depends on the movement of Chiron, because it's a little bit funny movement. So Chiron spends the most amount of time, for example, in the sign of Aries, Pisces, and Taurus, and the least amount of time, for example, in the sign of Libra. So while these two were, having this cycle, they had 27 opposition between 1986 to 2006. That's a lot of opposition. And we had, of course, a couple of squares going on as well and so forth, but they are closing up. So they are in a closing semi-square. And the next cycle actually going to be happening in 2028 June. So this is what I would like to cover for you today. But before we jump right onto it, I have got tickets available for my upcoming retreat in Mexico. And this is going to be all about predictions, how to bring the predictions together, how to become your own personal astrologer, basically. So we're going to be looking at some progression techniques, solar return, solar arc, some unique timing techniques as well, which you might not have heard about just yet. And we're going to bring them all together. So it's going to be 5-day course. Hopefully you will be able to come and we can meet in person. Now, as I said, the Saturn-Chiron synodic cycle varies widely in length, just because Chiron is, it has got this funny movement, as I said. So it can be between sometimes 60 years to a lot longer period as well. Now, why I wanted to make a video about this is actually because the last conjunction, as I said, happened in 1966 April, and that happened on 24 degree of Pisces. And guess what? Recently, we had the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction happening there. So I feel like this last pull between Saturn and Chiron is extremely important because Neptune and Jupiter re-energize that. At the time, this conjunction happened, by the way, with Pallas Atheni as well. So what is Saturn-Chiron cycle about? Well, for example, it could talk to us about medical fields, but also something to do with holistic approach. Now, Pallas Athene is pretty much about holistic approach and something to do with inner wisdom as well. So clearly in this cycle, you know what, we could see the rise, how much holistic medicine, has become important in our life. And most likely it is going to be more and more important. Also, this was pretty much talking to us about to learn to trust and balance out our own body. So we're talking about the mind, the body, and the spirit, how to bring them together. But at the same time, it does talk to us about knowing our limits as well. Especially while Saturn is in the sign of Pisces now. Also, how to help ourselves. By the way, the next conjunction is going to be happening, as I said, 2028 June on 7 degree of Taurus. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit just because I feel like it's, especially because Saturn Chiron cycle is really about such things as the reality of being a human being. So what does it mean to be a human? Also, it could talk to us about self-destruction, how we self-destruct ourselves, but also the nature around us. Now, this is the reason why I think the next Saturn Chiron conjunction will be extremely important, because it's going to be happening in sign of Taurus, which represents the Earth. Yes, the health industry, surely. And you know what? When it goes into Taurus, which is about natural remedies, natural resources of the Earth, it's going to become a lot more important. But of course, the cost of living and so forth with Taurus comes into the picture as well. But you know what? We're going to talk about those in about 4 years' time. Also, what is our relationship with Earth, with our place of living overall? So this is an ecological type of combination. Also, it could talk to us about the sustainable use of the resources, what we have, natural medicine, the care of humans and animals as well at the same time. You know, but we are not the only living beings here. So most likely we will see more and more topics coming up in regards to animal rights. And we can see that, you know, there is this major debate nowadays, which I have been watching, you know, about being vegetarian and, you know, we want to save the planet and so forth. And then the argument is that, yeah, but you kill the bees to be able to have avocado and tofu and, you know, and that avocado needs to be transported from one place to another and so forth. So you also do damage to Earth. So what are you talking about? So there are major debates about these type of things, and it looks like it's going to get escalated, especially till 2024, January, February. But you know what? We're gonna see that till 2028. So these what I'm talking to you about is because we are in the last phase of the Saturn Chiron period. It's not just going to be about this year and next year, but till 2028. Also, Saturn Chiron can talk to you about accepting full responsibility for your own life. Accepting that life comes with challenges, as we don't need to run away from that. Now, Saturn is in the sign of Pisces currently, right? It's sitting somewhere around 4 degrees. So definitely one of the teachings of Saturn in Pisces is that, are you going to be actually running away from your own fears, or are you going to be looking into the mirror and then gathering some type of strength? It could talk to us about the ignorance of different type of species on Earth. So not just talking about animals and flowers and vegetables and all those type of things, but other human beings as well. So surely Saturn and Chiron for me is something to do with climate change. You know what? It's evident, right, that there is this ecological destruction to our planet, the flora, the fauna, you know, we might not care as much as we should. And, you know, this is definitely a problem nowadays, right? But then Chiron in the sign of Aries says that, yeah, but I'm all about self-preservation, you know, but we need to be thinking about the future as well. And there is this message with Saturn and Chiron, right? Chiron, you know, is the wounded healer, and it could talk to you about past lives, but also its symbol is a key, right? So it's the key to future as well. And then it tells you that you're going to have to be responsible for now and for other people's life as well in the future. Also, this could talk to you about such things as natural instincts, body wisdom, something to do with your spiritual senses as well at the same time. And you know what? Let's not forget that Neptune is in the sign of Pisces as well since what, 2012? You know, so it can talk to us about the pollution, anything to do with the gas and the oil, you know, how it gets extracted from our land, but also the water matters, the air matters, whether it's clean or not clean. And of course, something to do with waste handling, how to handle the waste, how to store the waste, what to do with that, and so forth. You know, and there are some type of movements, of course, you know, from corporate world and governments and so forth. But of course, there is a little bit of a profit for them as well. So Saturn Chiron for me is a little bit about, if we want healing, we need to be, you know, fully responsible for the consequences of our actions. Also, this could talk to you about how we disconnect from reality, and how we disconnect from other people as well. So often what happens is, especially now with Saturn in the sign of Pisces, that the victimhood is pretty much growing here, that, poor me and so forth. And then we have got some of the laws of the institution, which is somehow exposing us. And then Chiron, of course, wants to be entitled to be who they want to be, but we feel kind of disempowered. And then we feel some type of shame. Chiron rules shame. And so where does that lead? It's going to lead to some type of hatred. So sometimes Saturn Chiron, what happens in this cycle is that we get divided. Yes, this could talk to you about diseases as well, of course, unfortunately. Diseases, especially what comes from animals, but the Saturn is in Pisces again. So it's the restriction about using medicine. So, but are we overusing antibiotics, for example? Are we becoming abusive with them? Are we mismanaging? I mean, first of all, Pisces could talk to you about animals as well, especially the larger animals. So there is this. Oh, Chiron, by the way, rules domestication of animals too. So this is about, I can imagine that we're going to start domesticating some, bigger animals, which we have been doing. Let's be frank about it. But it's not that widely popular just yet. But it might be happening in the future. Also, this could talk to us about the abuse, what we do with animals, you know. And of course, Chiron in the sign of Aries, which has got the tendency to become aggressive about something. So we've got some, economic and especially ecological issues, which probably going to be popping up in the last 4 years for us. But also it can talk about how much the pets are going to become important in our life. Somehow, not necessarily replacing our children, but caring for them significantly, and maybe animal therapies are going to be, becoming more and more important, for example. I mean, I tend to be looking at my doggies as my own children, and I completely understand, whoever does the same because they bring loads of balance, beauty, and fun into your life as well. And probably we learn from these animals as well, even though they might not be able to, um, talk to us. But definitely, Saturn and Chiron could talk to us about, for example, how the wildlife species and especially their habitats are going to be kind of disappearing or, dying off because they're not going to be able to hide anymore, right? So Pisces is about hiding. So, and then of course, I feel like this could talk to us about the overpopulation as well. And because Saturn represents the government, you know what? Somehow that overpopulation needs to be stopped. And Saturn rules regulations and so forth. So we will see, I feel like these to be blooming in the next 4 years as well. Maybe what's going to be in danger is something to do with the species, for example, in our water. Now the one of the reasons, I mean, this has become a topic already. I feel like since 2016, when we had the Saturn Neptune square starting, now this is going to get somehow emphasized by Neptune going on to that 24-degree, and Jupiter has already been there. And guess what? Saturn is going to be on that 24-degree as well, where the Saturn Chiron conjunction took place. So sustainability, where does that fish come from? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? The pollution of oceans, the wounded birds, the wounded animals. But you know what? Let's not just talk about animals, but we're talking about races, nationalities, and also this could talk about how the religious belief systems are going to get divided. There is an element of fanatism going on being obsessed with something when it comes to Saturn and Chiron. So obviously Saturn is on 4 degree of Pisces and Chiron is on 19 degree of Aries. So that's where the 45 degree kind of come from. And often, if you even if you think about that, Chiron was rejected by their parents just because of the look of his, it does talk about our appearance as well and how dissatisfied we are with the way how we look like. And Saturn says, you know what, just take, just accept the way you are, so there is a little bit of a self-love behind as well. But I also feel like that this is about being victimized somehow. And you know what? We often victimize ourselves by just having those delusions around us because we tend to be lying to ourselves quite a lot, right? Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, which is about deception overall. Yes, unfortunately, it could talk to us about how the government is kind of like misusing their own power and how we are going to be suffering because of that and what type of losses it leads us to. Um, Also, it could talk to us about some of the legislations which are going to be coming into effect, kind of like not allowing you to make your own decisions, basically, especially when it comes to the health industries. And we saw that already in 2020, unfortunately, when, what, they wanted to kind of legalize to have vaccines against COVID and so forth. This might not be going away, unfortunately. So on one hand, I feel like what is going to be a major industry which is going to be blooming somehow, is the purification of the body. The dietary choice is what we've got. Anything to do with addiction problems, because obviously Pisces is about escapism and denial as well. So we want to be, healing, we want to be curing ourselves. So medical field is, it looks to me that it's going to be blooming significantly. Is that because there are going to be more sick people, or is that because people will be more health conscious overall? Probably that health consciousness is going to come around sometimes around 2026 to 2028, when we're going to have the nodes in Virgo and Pisces as well. That's going to be amplifying some of the stories there, surely. Uh, Now, if you look at previous cycles, you can look at, for example, what was going on when there was the square happening between Saturn and Chiron. That happened in 2014. We had a trine between them two in 2004. Sorry, the square happened in 2018, and then we had a trine in 2014. You can look at those, but I only looked at what was going on in 1966, when the conjunction actually took place. And that was something to do with the moon landing. There was a certain type of pills, the pill syndrome, actually. Then we had the cellular learning and memory, which was first observed. And then we had the first artificial heart, which got installed into a person's body at Houston, Texas hospital. And of course, we had the Vietnam War as well. However, Saturn and Chiron is not necessarily connected to war. I kind of would like to mention that as well. So, what shall you expect on a personal level? Of course, this is going to be something, which I'm sure all of you are curious about. So, because there is this semi-square going on. By the way, semi-square is a 45-degree aspect. It's a minor square, but because this is the start of the last phase, we also call it as the balsamic phase of two planetary energies. If you just think about the moon phases, for example, so this would be the balsamic moon phase, which is really about reflection, coming to a closure somehow, uh, finishing some projects up. And also, definitely, this is something where we need to be reflecting on certain type of things. So you might want to be checking out, okay, where is my Pisces cusp and where is my Aries cusp? And you're going to have to somehow blend those two together. And this is going to be the way how you can actually overcome this little bit of a challenging aspect. Unfortunately, I've spoken about some great positive matters previously with the Pluto Jupiter trine, where is your luck in 2024, and so forth. But this is a little bit of a challenging side. And when Saturn and Chiron comes together on a personal level, it wants you to examine whether you are too negative, whether you live in the past, whether you get blockages from government, authority figures, like, for example, you cannot get promoted, or whether you cannot accept the structure and certain type of laws and regulations in your life, or whether you are tired of working extremely hard to be able to put something on the table, right? Because Aries is about survival needs. But also, are you claiming actually your own authority position as well? Because often Saturn kind of says that inside we want it, we just don't know how to get there. Also, it could talk to you about that I don't want to be falling into the traps of others, or I don't want to be making the same mistakes like others do. And therefore, you know what? I'm walking away from any type of courageous moments. Definitely, it could talk to you about just having a bit of a laughter sometimes, or it could talk to you about looking at your parental relationships, how you were um, conditioned to believe in certain type of things, and how you can release those conditionings so you can move forward with your life. you know Also, are you ready to take on your true role in the world? It is also telling you to grow up a little bit. Things needs to be done. You don't need to be running away. You need to initiate certain type of things. Also, definitely, it tells us that our biggest issue could be, for example, something to do with aging, not accepting that we are getting old. And what are you gonna do about it? Aries says that if it's scientifically proven that if you do some sport and you are, a little bit more body conscious and so forth, you're gonna start looking younger. I just read an article about these type of researches yesterday. Actually, a friend of mine sent it over to me. And also, Pisces is very vulnerable, and then Aries says, "No, I'm not going to be vulnerable." Obviously, this is a challenging position, right? Because we've got two signs which have nothing to do with each other. Also, it's often about self-respect as well, whether I cannot celebrate my little success stories, and then I'm always thinking about the negative ones. And then often it is about kind of like, having to act in a formal way. But that's not really something I want to do. It could talk about loneliness. And you know what? I feel like this is definitely a big topic by having all these North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra, where relationships might be failing, for example, for loads of people. But not even that. But you know what? I feel like I'm too old to be in a relationship because everyone wants to be with a younger one and so forth. We can have that type of fear. How are we going to walk away from that? Depression, having to be a workaholic as well, right? So how much time you spend on yourself and how much time you spend at workplace, that could be also a very significant topic. So now, to summarize certain bits and bobs here, we had the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, which took place approximately about a year ago, right? And that happened exactly on the same degree. And I was talking about certain type of things such as unfortunately, something is going to go down in Hawaii, for example. I did talk about possibly a little island disappearing, climate change. This video is still available for free of charge on my website. It was about a 2.5 hour video if you want to revisit that. But that kind of degree gets reactivated here by this semi-square as well. So loads of those things which I mentioned last year in that video, you know what, it's gonna happen. Hopefully, Chiron sometimes can represent corrections as well. Hopefully, because at that time I was talking about how the oil prices is gonna increase and how expensive it is gonna be to drive a car and all those type of things. Let's hope that this is going to somehow get sorted. But as I said, why are we talking about this? Because, the next phase is going to be happening in the sign of Taurus, and that is the Earth. And let's be frank, I think we all want to stay around for a little while, right? And we just have to be a little bit more cautious and doing some type of baby steps to pretty much save the world. So guys, I hope you like this video. It is a little bit of a shorter one. I'm not going to break it down for the 12 signs because I feel like the message is clear here for every single of us. Have a good weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.